All right.
We're live. Thanks, Echo.
After. Well, I'm just going to say what you say. And
yeah.
that's,
we talk in uniform.
Exactly.
I say something, you repeat it.
Okay, so.
You say something, I repeat it.
I want to get the screen up to make sure.
Yeah, we're still just trying to figure out all the bugs, and for someone that's going to watch this back after.
In case anyone, we don't know what we're doing.
It's been about an hour.
In case it isn't obvious.
2 hours almost. It's been about 2 hours.
2 hours
of messing about.
Nonsense.
Trying to figure out streaming, having streaming issues. We're not even sure if we're having streaming issues right now.
Just checking in to make sure.
Just make sure that we're.
We don't know what we're doing. It's been about an hour.
That's us in the background. All right.
It looks good, though.
I think we're good.
It looks good.
We figured it out. And by we, I mean he figured it out.
I figured it out because I know things.
Yeah. He's the tech guy.
Okay, so.
All right.
Don't hit the table. That's gotta be a rule. Don't hit the table like
right.
on Temple.
We've learned something. Let's get a drink of water before we get started.
All right.
Shameless promotion for Popeye's.
Don't give them free promotions. Come on now.
Yeah, I'm hoping they'll send me a bunch of
Our
supplements later on. All right.
Our one viewer, who is me, is.
Don't tell anybody that. They don't know that. That's depressing.
Okay.
All right. So we obviously want to talk about the elephant in the
title of
podcast,
the video.
the podcast room. We'll say.
Yes.
The CNN elephant.
Sanjay Gupta.
Yeah. Yeah, don't say his name right or anything. That's fine.
I don't respect the man enough to say his name right.
All right.
This guy.
Yeah, if anybody wants to know his actual name, it's Dr. Sanjay Gupta. It sounds even worse when you say his name right anyway. I think he should probably go by Gupta. Yeah. So for anybody who's
this article.
Oh, okay. You pull it up.
Yeah, we got the article up here.
Right.
That he wrote following his appearance on Joe Rogan, in which he says some frankly insane things.
Silly.
Would you call it insane?
No, you know what I would call it? I
Silly?
would call it Judas. He Judas Joe. To Joe's face, he's saying one thing. Behind Joe's back, he's writing a whole other thing.
That he felt threatened?
Yeah, felt threatened. Yeah. Do you feel threatened right now?
I feel a little bit threatened.
You should feel threatened.
Yeah.
Because I'm more likely to punch you than Joe Rogan was to punch Gupta.
Hey, you don't see his other arm there? He's got a knife. He's holding a knife, and he's being aggressive.
Just so you know how close we're sitting.
Yeah, we're kind of right beside each other.
We're fairly close.
We're sorting it all out.
I'm close enough to smack him, put it that way.
As right. I am him, so he'd better watch his mouth.
Yeah. I'm watching my mouth on the screen.
I'm trying to see if.
So why don't you open up the conversation about what we think about this in depth? I mean, did you watch the whole podcast?
I have not seen the entire podcast. I've only seen the beginning.
Nor have I. I've watched 2.5 hours of the podcast.
That's most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there were some points in this article.
Yeah, just
very interesting.
Well, I mean, so for anybody, if we're gonna hopefully don't spoiler alert. Here we go. Spoiler alert. In the podcast, they talk a lot about COVID and the vaccine and such. And Gupta, I don't know. Like, it's frustrating at times because you can tell that Rogan's trying to have a pretty open conversation with him, just a candid sort of conversation with him about various things. And Gupta, you can tell he's there on behalf of CNN. He hasn't dropped the CNN thing. Every once in a while he tries to throw this little, he's trying to basically throw you off that he's not there for CNN. Baloney. He's completely there for CNN. So he's
there pushing an agenda, trying to talk to Joe's audience that aren't going to watch CNN because they know what CNN is.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's so weird, some of the things that people like this talk about, because as I've highlighted right in front of us here, he says, I don't think I've ever had a conversation that long with anyone. Seriously, think about that. We sat in a windowless podcast booth with 2 sets of headphones and microphones and a few feet between us. Not a single interruption. No cell phones, no distractions, no bathroom breaks.
For one,
this is a three and a half hour podcast. Who doesn't have that experience in their life of doing that numerous times? How boring is your life?
Yeah.
To not be having in-depth conversations with people.
Well, I wouldn't even say boring. Like, how ridiculous of a person are you that nobody wants to sit down and have an actual discussion with you?
Or how surface level are your opinions?
Right.
Or your thoughts about things that you can't really talk for more than an hour or just 20 minutes. Some people 5 minutes on a topic and then you lose them.
You know what I think it is? I think everybody he talks to, he says something and they go, I absolutely 100% agree with everything you ever and will ever say. And he goes, okay, cool. We don't have to talk anymore.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Echo chamber.
You get a lot of that, especially on CNN, the way the media works in this particular era of time.
Yeah.
I find it interesting, too, that he comments in this article that there's little room for reasonable conversations anymore in a 3-hour podcast. He says, at a time when there is a desire for shorter, crisper content, responding to abbreviated human attention spans.
He's basically saying we're a bunch of idiots who can't stay focused on anything long enough.
Yeah, of which success of Joe Rogan is the biggest piece of evidence against that.
Exactly. That's
because Joe Rogan becomes the most popular podcast in the world.
And he's putting 3-hour podcasts out of 2 people talking.
And that people watch, and that's what made him. That's what made him big was he started having these 3-hour conversations, and then he just elevated to a whole new level because people want that.
And
people
that's the funniest thing about it.
People like when you sit down with an academic, with someone who's smart, who knows a lot about a certain topic, and you talk to them. You have more of a normal person like Joe with a more. He's a smart guy, but he's got more of a jack of all trades kind of. He knows a lot of things, but not necessarily too much about any particular thing. Yeah. He knows a lot about a few things.
And he's a moderate. And being a moderate, even though he's a little left of center, he's a moderate. So anybody can kind of relate to him. And he's open to ideas from both sides. He's not one of these guys that's sort of pigeonholed on one thing. He seems very open, right? Which is, I think, the reason why a lot of people want to talk to him, why he's authentically engaged.
He's himself. On the podcast, which is part of the appeal to the whole thing.
But it was funny though, watching that podcast. I felt that way at times about Gupta. I thought, oh, okay. I mean, you're getting kind of like it's like the guy cut away from the puppet strings, right? But then you'd see every once in a while, especially when he brought up the ivermectin. Maybe I shouldn't even say that term. But
you can say it.
Yeah, but I shouldn't say it. We might get shadow banned from all of our viewers.
Yeah, exactly.
But when he talks about that and them calling it horse dewormer, it's funny how you watch Gupta basically retract from it.
Kind of admit, right?
He did a little bit,
but like that
he
was
kept saying nuance. He's like, oh, people use nuance. What do you mean nuance?
I saw a comment earlier. Someone pointed out it seems to be pretty. I don't know, pertaining to that horse dewormer thing. It's like saying. Someone who puts a sugar cube in their coffee, put a horse snack in there instead.
Sure. Horses do eat sugar cubes as a snack.
They do. It is a horse snack.
So maybe that's what it is.
Horses enjoy
it
very much as a snack.
Oh, maybe we're eating. Yeah. Maybe when we eat sugar cubes, we're eating horse snacks instead.
We are technically. I mean, ivermectin is. It's used as a dewormer. It's an antiviral and it's a good antiparasitic. It's been used in human beings for like 40 years.
Hey, we got to think about that for everything now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you feed your dog table food, you're done. You should eat that food because that's dog food.
Every time you have Tylenol, you're having dog medicine. Why are you having dog medicine?
We've fallen off the cliff of absurd at this point. So it was, I was excited to see that he was talking to him though, because I was like, oh, somebody from the other side of the aisle. Well, even though it's not the complete other side of the aisle, but somebody from CNN of all places, after all that baloney with that, comes on his show and talks to him. I'm like, oh, this ought to be pretty cool. And it was, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. It was weird. I just feel like they dropped the ball on a good chance to maybe reclaim a little bit of CNN's credibility, but also maybe even like apologize, maybe even make a tone for that. But
you can tell he wasn't there to do that.
Nah, he wasn't there.
He was there to
promote his book.
Promote his book and push a particular political agenda.
I think it was, honestly, I think it was just to push his book, and I think the agenda thing was.
Well, the agenda thing is so he keeps his job at CNN, so that he can write another book.
He just comes off as phony. Like the guy comes off as a phony.
Talk about phony. In the article, he mentions at a certain point, he's like, a part of me thought the MMA former Taekwondo champion might hurtle himself across the table and throttle my neck. How insane you have to be to seriously entertain that thought, and then to go and write an article publicly stating that.
I think the funniest thing about that was the fact that he kept calling him friend and stuff.
Oh yeah, friend.
He was like, "Oh,
hey, friend, how are you, friend?"
That's what you'd say about a friend. That's what a two-face would say about somebody behind their back after the fact. But yeah, you know what? It would have been an even funnier podcast if Joe Rogan did reach out and just punch him.
That would have been much more entertaining.
I'm going to be curious to see what Rogan's response is to this after the fact now.
Like, I don't know. Has he responded? I don't think he has.
No, probably not.
I guess this just came out yesterday, so I mean, he might have talked about it on his podcast today.
I'm thinking he would have talked about it on his podcast.
Yeah. Unless the one today, what was it, with Tony Hinchcliffe and Brian Redband? That was probably recorded.
He's probably a couple days behind, right?
It'll probably come up in a podcast soon. Because this is just an insane article here.
Yeah.
It just goes to show, like, some people are eating this up right now.
Well, yeah, but I think CNN knows their ratings are completely declining. People are, you can only put out so much baloney misinformation. Like they talk about misinformation all the time, but they're the ones propagating misinformation a lot of the time. And I'm not saying all the time, because there's certain times they're just taking a left approach, just like Fox would take a right approach. But I think when you're as big of a news agency like CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or any of these jagaloons, you've really got to. You can have your opinion pieces all you want. If people knows it's an opinion piece, that's fine. But when you try and play it all off,
they don't label
news,
them opinion pieces.
That's it.
And well, the problem we live in a postmodern society now, which is terrifying. But you look at everything that's going on, and it's true. I think, did we talk about this the other day?
Oh, I'm sure we talk about everything, and we should be talking on podcasts, but we don't.
Yeah, I don't know. Basically, all that means, or distilled down into a very simple form. For us to be in a postmodern society, it means that the only thing that matters is the narrative.
Right.
That's what we're seeing here. These are the good guys, these are the bad guys. Bad guys bad no matter what they do. Orange man bad no matter what happens, and the good guys good no matter what they do. We shouldn't talk about this on the podcast, but did you hear about the Loudoun County thing that happened?
Oh, I refresh. Well, refresh everybody.
This
ought to be fun.
Without being too verbal about it, there was a high school aged girl who was forcibly against her will sodomized by
a kid that
a male student identifying as transgender.
Mm-hmm. I read about this,
and the school covered it up. And the dad went to a school board meeting. Well, didn't they arrest him or something? The dad was irate when he got called to the school, and the school said that they didn't call the police and they were going to handle it internally. Mm-hmm. Then they called the police on him. He filed a report. They had a kit. At the hospital, they had a kit which gave the evidence. The kid got arrested a month or so later. The dad went to a school board meeting to call them out on their nonsense. That they're trying to. This is a horrible thing that happened in their school, and they're just trying to, sweep it under the rug like nothing happened.
Right.
And he got forcibly removed from the meeting.
There's some sick stuff like that. Unfortunately, you can see
Steven
a lot
Crowder
of that kind of
got a hard strike on YouTube for talking about it.
Yeah, well, Crowder does that kind of stuff to himself, I think, because he likes to really, really push the envelope on things. I mean, if you talk about it, so the problem with Crowder is Crowder's a shock jock. He's like a modern day shock jock. He
He's
tries to.
He's what late night hosts used to be.
Yeah.
Only
But that's why I say a modern day shock jock, right? But he does it. He does stuff in ways that he wants to be. He wants to be pushing the boundaries, and he wants to be that way. But he's on a platform that can demonetize him very quickly for any of that stuff. You got to kind of pick your battles. Like what we're doing now, we're talking about stuff. It doesn't really matter. We can say whatever the heck we want. If they take our video down, so what?
Well, that's the thing. Do you bend the knee? Crowder will not bend the knee, and there's
you have
respect
to
in that.
You have to,
especially since he didn't violate any rules. They explicitly didn't violate any rules.
Yeah, but you remember, which
is a part of the problem. That's a part of the problem.
But you remember, this is what they do, right? This is what YouTube and this is what these guys, these kinds of big organizations do. They make the rules so interpretable that they can say, and they don't even tell you. Like if you've ever violated anything, they don't say specifically what you did. They just say you violated our terms of service, and then they demonetize you or they take your video off, right? So, but you know that when you get on YouTube, you know that those are the rules of the game, right? You know that it's cheating. It's cheating on its own end, but you have to play within those rules until you get maybe your own whatever, right? Your own setup where you've unplugged from those streaming devices.
That's the thing. Crowder was playing within those rules, and he has very good experience dealing with those rules, and being very meticulous about what can I do, what can't I do, because they've been trying to take him down for a long time now. This isn't the only time he's had a strike, and he's been unable to do a show on YouTube, and just kind of lost my train of thought there.
That'll happen.
My phone's dying.
That'll happen.
But oops. Then he just covers the story that they're trying to sweep under the rug, and so boom, you're gone.
Like I like Crowder, right? Like even when he does stuff,
hilarious.
Yeah, when he does stuff that I'm like, ooh,
I like the edgy stuff.
Right? No, but even
I'm a fan of it.
Even if I watch something, somebody's doing something and they do something a little edgy or a little bit too over the top for me, even I watch and go, oh, that's a little bit. So what? I just go, I'm not going to watch that. But I don't go, oh, I want that person banned. I want that person
that's the other thing too.
deplatformed.
You used to be able to just pick and choose the content you wanted to watch.
Sometimes people put a bad joke.
But that's the thing. People don't like it when other people enjoy things that they don't like, and they want to take it away. There are so many people who have this hateful mindset.
It's collectivism, right? It's the collective mindset.
You should act the way that I think you should act. You should think that the content that I think is funny or entertaining or educational. You should think that those are those things. Yeah. And if you don't, you're wrong, and you need to be hurt. Is usually the result that these people come to, or the conclusion that they come to.
Well, that's been going on for years, right? With this whole it starts in schools. It starts with kids being brainwashed or whatever you want to say. They lead them into believing certain things, and they start to feel sort of righteous or emboldened by their ideas, right? So and if anybody thinks differently than that, they're like, whoa, no, you can't. I don't want to hear that. Like, my muffin ears have been hurt by what you've said. Oh, you have a difference of opinion. I can't take that. What if you must be a bad person? You have a difference of opinion.
Right. There are people now who the worst thing that can happen to them is someone can disagree with their opinions.
But I think, and I say this all the time, I still think that the moderates are there. I think the moderate, it might be shriveling a little, like the percentage of people that are moderates, but I think most people. Oh yeah, no, I think the overwhelming majority.
It's the moral busybodies,
right? And that's the thing. It's always the loudest.
It's the same thing.
It's the Karens.
No matter what it is, no matter what it is, whether it's the hard religious Puritans.
The Puritans.
That's not good.
Uh-oh. What was that? What are you doing?
That just.
Oh, you're messing with the computer. Stop it.
I should mute the computer.
You're muting it? Muting it. Whatever.
It's a mutiny.
That's fun to hear those sounds. People know that we're actually on a computer.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Whether it's the Puritan religious people who gain power because religion's in, or it's right now in the 1940s it was the Nazis in Germany.
Is he gonna talk about
the what was it? The late 1800s to the early 1900s. It was the what were they called? The early communists of the Soviet Union.
I don't know.
Because when they overthrew the monarchy, and then they, those people that kind of, it was the minority of people that supported communism, but they got enough support because they used these, you know how communism works. They use all these big words that sound good. And we want equity, and they
it was easier
with equality.
It was different, but easier back then to control the masses, so they didn't have to do it so kind of overtly.
Was it easier?
I think so. Sure.
I wonder about that sometimes, because although it seems like it's harder now with all this information, I wrestle with what ratio of people I think are willing and capable to sort through that information,
sure,
and find come to reasonable conclusions on their own.
It's like
whether I think they're right or wrong
sources,
is irrelevant from that. But I think there are a lot of people who just turn on CNN and listen to what they say, and that's just the way it is to them.
Oh, right? I agree.
Right? CNN is news. And so when CNN says Donald Trump calls white nationalists fine people, people go, oh my God.
I know.
That's horrible. That's the president of the United States. And they don't watch the they don't watch the clip.
I've got friends that regurgitated stuff like that. Where they just regurgitate like 5 lines of what someone said, and I'm like, you realize the whole statement wasn't that, it was this. I'm not going to defend anybody in particular, let alone Trump. I mean, the guy just opens his mouth and says, and just junk comes out half the time. But I mean, don't put words into his mouth, or don't say he's such and such.
That's
without, like, you're tearing up what he's actually saying. And again, the whole statement might speak for itself.
They lied about what he said.
But I'm saying, even the whole statement itself might even not sound good. I'm not saying that particular one, but just let him speak.
That particular one is egregious, and it's the best example because it is quite literally, he said the exact opposite of what they claimed that he said.
Yeah.
And it came up in the presidential debate, and that Trump had the perfect opportunity to just outright refute that.
Yeah.
And urge people to go and watch the speech that he gave, the actual video clip of the speech when it was brought up. And he didn't. And he just he blew it off. And you kind of understand where he's coming from. He's probably extremely frustrated by it because it's like they're fucking lying about him every other day about some stupid thing. And he's probably he's probably over it at that point and just wants to get through to something substantive.
Or he's waiting for his next time to talk.
He could have handled it better.
You know what?
And he definitely could have turned it around, and it would have been like Joe Biden used that as an excuse to run. This idea that the president called white nationalists fine people. Trump could have been like, well, Joe, your campaign is entirely based on a lie. Like, what do you say about that? And Joe would say, shove it in pressure.
It's one of these things where people do that where they back and forth, and it's always going to happen. There's never ever going to be an end to that kind of thing, and there's always going to be echo chambers for people to go and hear what they want to hear, and you go and hear like